You're listening to Keeping It 100 with Mel and Bruce, sponsored by the 100 Black Men of Las Vegas. What they see is what they'll be. My name is Mel Tiller, and I'm your host. Today's guest, a very important figure in our community, doing sensational things for us here in Carson City and crafting laws. Her name is Assemblywoman Claire Thomas. Assemblywoman Thomas, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mel, and I appreciate you inviting me. Just so that you know a little bit about me, again, I'm Assemblywoman Claire Thomas, representing Assembly District 17 in beautiful North Las Vegas. This is my second term as the Assemblywoman for District 17, and I'm honored to be speaking with you today. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, we greatly appreciate you coming aboard. Listen, you do a lot of work and you focus a great deal on education. Talk to us about the state of education in Nevada and the things that you are particularly working on now.
Right now, I think to me, the education of our Nevada children, to say the least, is dismal.
Yes.
When we have a system that has been enacted that a child does not have to start school mandatorily, start school until the age of 7, that is the second grade. And then when we have bills that tell us that if a child is not reading by the 3rd grade, then they're retained. But if your law says that they don't have to start school until the 2nd grade, it's just it's frustrating that we have not changed that law. And I know that there is a bill out there, and I cannot remember the name of it, or cannot focus on the name of the bill or the bill sponsored, let me put it that way, that wants to change the age to 6. Some of the things that I ran on the first session my freshman session, was the fact that I believe that pre-kindergarten is something that we should focus on.
Yes.
In the state of Nevada. And that's pre-K, universal pre-K. And I tell you the reason why. The reason why is that we have known that children at an early age absorbed their information that they carry with them for the rest of their life. It's a foundation.
Yes.
So if we're building on a foundation, we should start with pre-K. Pre-K is ages 4 to 5. In that start of pre-K, we have social emotional learning, and it builds on how the kids interact with one another, how they interact with learning, how they interact with society, because you have groups of kids that are put together that are not only people that look like me and you, but people that look like other people in our society. That's why we say that social emotional learning comes into play. So that once they get into the higher learning environments, and right now we have an issue with behavioral problems. Well, if we start at that early age, I'm not saying that we can eliminate all problems, but the majority of them are eliminated. Because if you notice, when kids are at a playground and they're 4 and 5, guess what they do? They interact with one another.
Yes.
I don't care what color they are. And this is what that, people that are smarter than me, for sure, have brought to the table. And I think Nevada needs to do that, especially if we are going to get above that 49th, 50th ranking of states. And
Yes, yes, yes. Talk to me about the kind of pushback that you're getting and the rationale that those who don't agree with you are giving you.
well, right now we have two bills. We have one bill is AB 285, and that is from one of our legislators. The sponsor is Assemblywoman Angie Taylor. And then we have AB 330, which is the governor's bill. And both bills actually right now, to me, are reactionary. And if you recall, a few months ago, we had a shooting of a 6-year-old shooting his teacher
Yes,
in the state of Virginia.
yes,
And the bills that I have looked at in horror um, uh, governs children that are 6 and over if they number one have drugs, bring drugs to school. Remember the number 6. Bring
6.
drugs to school, have behavioral problems, fighting, or if they are a threat, 6 years old, to their teachers, then they are either suspended, expelled, or permanently expelled. How do you permanently expel a 6-year-old? I don't know. And um, this is this is something that really gets me very, very upset, because I know that this will reflect on the minority community, because we
Yes,
have teachers that are teaching, and they are, let's be honest, about maybe in their 20s, have no children, and they expect children, if they have 20 kids in a classroom, they expect them to sit quietly and, no disruption. If the children, and I know for a fact, I've been visiting schools that students will raise their hand, ooh, 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 and sometimes they don't have the answer that the teacher is looking for. Sometimes they are looking for attention, you know,
yes,
and it's, to me, it's up to that seasoned teacher to know how to navigate their class. And a lot of the teachers that we bring in, because we have a shortage of teachers, so we're bringing everybody in. A lot of them are substitutes, and they really don't know how to um, gain a classroom. They
yes,
don't know how to sit, and engage in their students. They feel that a student is supposed to sit, be quiet until called upon, and that's not how it really is done. I'm not a teacher, and I'm sure that they would take exception to what I'm saying, but most of your counselors or psychiatrists will tell you that kids do not respond that way. So it's up to us to look at some of the things that are going wrong, and I'll say this because I know you have questions for me. There was a school union, teachers union, that said that it went to my community and said that I do not believe in teacher safety. That is so far from the truth. What I'm saying is that we have to stop being reactionaries. Something that happened in another state, we have not heard of a child at the age of 6, pointing a gun at one of our teachers. I'm not saying that it might happen, I don't know. But I believe that school safety, just like when I say that I'm in this building right now with my door closed, and the outer office person is not in the office, I feel safe. My door is not locked because I feel safe. You know why I feel safe? The administration made me feel safe. When I was spending time in the military, every facility that I ever went in to in my 20 years, I felt safe because the base commander, the administrators, made me feel safe. The same thing for when I worked in the court, in the courthouse. Whenever I would go into the regional justice center courtrooms, I felt safe. The judge felt safe because the administrators made us feel safe. And I'm saying that the school principals, the superintendents of schools need to make their teachers feel safe. We should not have safety on the backs of our kids. And I say the backs of our kids by expulsion and permanent expulsion. That is not the answer. And I will defend that to the day I die because that is not the purpose of school.
Not only that, it is so frustrating to see that Black and brown kids in this state are expelled at a higher rate, they're suspended at a higher rate, they're graduating at a lower rate, and when they graduate, they're not prepared for college.
They're not prepared for work.
Yes, they're not.
You know,
they're simply not prepared. This educational system is failing. It is simply failing, and all the data says this. You have been working on this situation for a long time. We know that Nevada has been a bottom feeder as far as the quality of education is concerned, 49, 50, maybe 47, 48, but has been a bottom feeder for decades. What are some of the solutions? What are some of the solutions that you see? I know that you are very passionate about this issue. You've been working on it quite a while. Give us some hope.
Well, again, I will say the number one thing that we need to do is cultivate our preschool initiative. And I have two bills that will do that. Right now, we have pre-K in the state, but the state only follows about 2,300 students in the entire state. Get that number in your mind. That in my district alone, I think in a 5-block radius, I have at least 2,300 kids that should be in preschool. But in the entire state, the state of Nevada just follows 2,300. The governor wants to add 600 more. It's again, it's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
So right now, what it is that we have an early education system that is not sitting at the table. My two bills will get them an advisory council, and it will also get them on the governor's council so that they can be that voice, so that they could be the voice to the governor, that they could be the voice to the Board of Education, to let them know that it's imminent, and start building that foundation so that when the next bill comes in to establish universal pre-K for our students in the state of Nevada, we can have it. And I say this is because this past August, I was invited to the Hunt Institute in Arizona, and the Hunt Institute is it's like a commission that has every state in the union, including our territories, which would be Puerto Rico, and to come together. And it's like a huge think tank of what is your state doing for the advancement of our children, starting with pre-K. Maryland was the only state that I believe Maryland was the only state that had birth through the 12th grade, because Maryland realizes that as soon as a child is born, they are learning.
Yes.
So why aren't we picking up on that? We're in our state, we're waiting until they're 7 years old to say mandatory learning process should begin. And while we were there, and I say there were 4 of us that were paneled that was invited. And it's by invitation only. And I was grateful because just interacting with other states, Georgia was sitting right next to us, and Georgia would look over at Nevada, where Nevada has all this money. You know, we have 11 billionaires in the state, and here, you know, gaming is, you know, profitable in our state. We have
Yes.
all of these things that are coming, and our education level is lower than Georgia,
And
lower
you
than.
know, that just blows me away. I ask my friends, how can we be lower than Mississippi?
Yes.
How can we be lower than Mississippi when we have the Vegas Strip? How can
Yes.
we be lower than Mississippi when those casinos we know print money? They
Well,
print money.
but we have all of these universities. We have, you know, we have minds that are, you know, that look at our child development, and we're not utilizing them. We come up with bills that look to discipline and that look to expulsion as the answer to fix behavioral problems in our school. And that,
The problem with that is, who are they expelling? They're expelling kids who look like you and me at an
no,
extraordinary rate.
and
At an
Mel,
extraordinary rate.
and I'll go one further. These same unions now, 2 weeks after they sponsored, was championing these two bills of expulsion because teachers are leaving by the droves because of the bad behavior of our students. That's what they testified to in our hearings, in the education hearings. And 2 weeks later, they came back, and I'm sitting there looking at a bill, and the bill addresses school principals and the reason why teachers are leaving by the droves. Why? Because principals are not doing their job. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I stand amazed. You just told me 2 weeks ago it was because of the students. And you need these bills in order to corral the students, in order for the teachers to feel safe. And now you're saying that the reason why teachers are leaving is because of the principals, because the principals aren't doing their job. And when I brought that up to them, they were, no, 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 no. It's not the principals, it's the kids. So you can't have it both ways. So it tells me what is happening. I see that the unions are trying to control our school system.
Talk to me about restorative justice and what the governor's bill would do to restorative justice.
It eliminates restorative justice. We had a bill back in, God rest his soul, Assemblyman Tyrone Thompson. And he was the champion of Assembly Bill 168 back in 2019, which passed, bipartisan passed. And what happened was, between 2019 school year and 2020, we had COVID.
Yes.
So it never was enacted. And restorative justice does not give, and this is what they're saying, gives a kid a pass for misbehavior or bad behavior. It does not. It makes the kid accountable for their behavior. And then they start with um, uh, ways to get kids to be able to um, combat their aggressive behavior, because sometimes we don't know if the kid's home life, we don't know if the kid's social life at school, we don't know what's happening to our children. And this restorative justice includes counselors, licensed social workers, so that we can find out what's going on. Sometimes these kids are coming to school without having a meal.
Yes.
Sometimes these kids are coming to school wearing the same clothes that they've worn for a week.
Yes.
Sometimes these kids are homeless. We need to find out, and it is our responsibility because these kids are our next leaders. These kids are our next voters. It is our responsibility as citizens of Nevada to be concerned about every aspect of our children's life.
Yeah, it is very disturbing. It is very disturbing. What do you have to say to a parent who is worried about their child and is at wit's ends? Who do you suggest they call? Who do you suggest they reach out to?
We have a lot of agencies that can assist parents, and our schools actually have a list, a litany of agencies that we can um, get assistance from. One of the big ones that I turn to, and I say this because this happened in my own personal family, that I was able to advise my daughter to contact legal aid, and with that, they were able to help her um, with my oldest granddaughter with, things that she did not realize that was at her disposal, like in 504 and IEP, and that's for kids that are experiencing either anxiety or if they have disabilities, anything like that. And a lot of parents don't realize that that's and it's free, you know. And um, some kids are going through, I say, anxiety. Some kids are suicidal, and we don't need to lose our kids because they don't understand themselves. And when they get into school, they have teachers and adults that um, that, for lack of a better um, example, um, have to deal, especially if you're in high school, have to deal with 3,000 kids, and one comes to you and they get thrown to the side. To me, every kid matters. And we have some phenomenal people out there that will take the time to talk to that child while they're in under their care, and we have some that won't. So, to me, the best thing would be to go to legal aid and find out what can be done for their child.
Let me say
But
this to you. So let me say this to you all who are listening. If your child is a child of color, your child is at risk if they go to CCSD. That's not hyperbole. That is simply the data. The data says your child, who is a child of color, is at risk simply because they go to CCSD. They stand a greater chance of being expelled, of being suspended. They stand a greater chance of not graduating or graduating unprepared. One of the best things that you can do is engage with your school. One of the best things that you can do is talk to your child's teacher. I'm telling you, when the teacher knows that somebody cares about that child and that child has an advocate, things change. I'm not saying that's the panacea. That is a place to start. One of the first things that you have to do is understand that you have to be an advocate for your child. If your child is left alone, they are at a greater risk.
exactly, and you have and I'll put this out there. You have legislators, you have representatives that if you're not getting the answer, you have the school boards. You elect these trustees. You go to your trustees if your school, because they have area superintendents, they have superintendent. I mean, we have all of these high levels of layers of people, make them do their job, contact them and
Yes.
find out. But my biggest, and this is extremely um, controversial with me and some of my fellow legislators. Um, and, I am a proponent of school choice because if CCSD will not teach our kids, then we should be able to send our kids to charter schools. We should be able, where they will, teach our kids. And one thing that I see that charter schools, they make the parents be engaged. That's one of the that's one of how you can get into the charter school. And I look at that, and I look at the bills now. They're including the disciplinary actions for charter schools and or gifted schools. And again, I've had the pleasure of visiting a number of charter schools and watched their program and seeing how they interact with their children. That if a child is underperforming, they have after school programs. Um, CCSD, they tell me that they have them, but uh, I find that if you have a problem with hiring teachers, then how do you have an after school program? There's and it's not as if CCSD, it's not as if we did not give the school district the funding that they say that they need.
Yes.
We did that. We're doing that. But what are they doing with the money? And it's up to every parent, every single parent that have a child in CCSD to demand to know what they are doing with the funds.
Assemblywoman Claire Thomas, you all have heard it here. Thank you all. Thank you so much for joining us today and giving us this information. I'll leave the last word with you. What would you like to leave our listening audience with?
That we can change the trajectory of our kids. We did it with civil rights in the 60s and the 70s. We have to be, as you stated earlier, advocates for our children. Demand change. Demand that we change the way we do business. Be at the school meetings when they hold them. If you're not there, make sure you call. Make sure just like you said when you indicated that contacting your teachers of your students, contact the school board, contact those trustees that you elected for office, contact your legislators, contact everyone and let them know that you are concerned about Black, Brown, Indigenous children in the state of Nevada and that you're not happy with what they are doing to our students. Because if we're not concerned, they will steamroll us. And that's, I'm just a little voice. I'm just that drop in the bucket. But if we all are together as drops in the bucket, they'll hear us and they'll change the way they do business in the state of Nevada.
You've been listening to Keeping It 100 with Mel and Bruce, sponsored by the 100 Black Men of Las Vegas. What they see is what they'll be. I'm Mel Tiller, your host, and that's Keeping It 100.